It is easy for those in business who are absorbed by cost reduction to forget that automatic reduction, if it means fewer and fewer jobs and a disregard of human costs and hardships, will in the end be damaging to the foundations of our free society. You might think I'm talking about LLMs here, but actually this is a US governmental report dated 5th of January 1956. Yeah, this isn't about AI at all. It's about computers. Remember the early days of ChatGPT when everyone thought that prompt engineering was going to be the next big job instead of turning into something that we can all kind of do ourselves, much like we're able to competently Google things by ourselves, thank you very much. Whether you're an LLM skeptic or an AI enthusiast, it's undeniable that LLMs have made deep roots within our society in a short space of time. It's my personal philosophy that you can't make an informed opinion on it if you don't understand it. So today, I'm going to do my part to give you my understanding of how LLMs work so you can build your own. So I first have to caveat this by saying I'm not trying to present myself as an LLM expert or anything like that. And I'm also not going to go into the intricacies of how they work under the hood from a mathematical perspective. Rather, today I want to give you the perspective of an informed practitioner, someone who is actually personally invested in using them to make their life better as a tool that they were designed to be. So this video is LLMs 101, an introductory video to how to make the most out of these chatbots. It's deliberately designed to be one that's high level, one that you can send to your mum who's considering spending £1,000 on a course teaching her how to use AI. This video, unlike our others, is not about a deep dive into data science. This video is about public service. So let's kick it off by asking one question. What does it mean when it says ChatGPT is thinking? Part 1, ChatGPT is not a human. Whether you're talking to ChatGPT, Gemini or Grok, other LLMs are available, is not a human. And this might feel a bit ridiculous to say, of course we know it's not a human, but actually it really does bear repeating. Because when an LLM validates how we're feeling or enthuses with us about our favourite TV show that we're monologuing about, it can be really hard for something on a deeper level to realise that the thing we're talking to is actually not human. And so we need to keep in mind two very important things. LLMs don't think, feel, love, enjoy, or hate, or any of those emotions. And much like how the YouTube algorithm is tuned to keep feeding us things that it knows we want to watch so that we keep giving it our attention, the LLMs are tuned in the exact same way. That last point is really key because recent studies have found that LLMs can actually exacerbate mental health conditions. For example, they're designed to appease you. So if you come out with a claim, an LLM is likely to validate you rather than questioning whether that's true, which can lead to a deterioration in your mental health symptoms. So yes, you might use ChatGPT for a sense check, but remember, it's biased to your point of view. The way that I try and combat this if I genuinely need a sense check is to have two different instances of conversations using two different perspectives so that I can get it to argue both sides of the argument for me and use that to make an informed decision. I do have to take a pause here and say that if you are struggling with mental health, then there are real resources designed out there to actually help you, not just to monopolize your attention. We'll put links to all of that in the description below, but I just wanted to take a moment to say, you matter, please check them out if you need some help. With that in mind, I want to talk about how LLMs actually work because when it comes down to it, they're fundamentally a very, very advanced autocomplete. They're trained on a massive set of data that is basically a huge game of word association. So if you ask it for help on your YouTube thumbnail, it's taking all of the data it scraped from thousands of blogs and Reddit posts and parroting back the most common advice. But just because the advice is most popular doesn't mean it's actually good. Which naturally brings me to my next point in the conversation. Part 2. LLMs don't make you better at something, they make you more average. I'm going to use a data sciencey term to talk about this, and that is the concept of reversion to the mean. If something reverts to the mean, that means over time or a number of experiments, it will end up moving back towards its average, regardless of whether it under or overperformed at first. Now, I learned about this topic through financial modelling, which I thought was a little bit too niche for this video, so I actually went and Googled for real-life examples of reversion to the mean and learned about the concept of the sophomore slump. The sophomore slump is a term used to describe someone who has had an absolutely phenomenal performance in their first year and then in their second year doesn't really do as well, therefore having a sophomore slump. And this is actually reversion to the mean in real life action, because in sport at the highest level, differences in skill are marginal, so much so that something like luck can have a much bigger effect. Now, some of us are luckier than others, that's for sure, but most of us go through periods where we're a bit luckier, followed by periods where we're not lucky, and so on and so forth, with luck tending to revert to the mean. In this player's case, their overperformance above their baseline skill level could mean that they had a phenomenally lucky year, and then the next year, what looks like a comparative underperformance is actually just their luck returning to the baseline, reverting to the mean. It just looks like an underperformance because we're comparing it to the phenomenal year they had last year. So how does this link back to LLMs? Well, as I hinted earlier, LLMs are trained on huge data sets of people's opinions on all sorts of different topics, and LLMs are just really advanced autocomplete. So they're going to give you the most common answer on a particular question. But just because it's the most common doesn't mean it's the best, just that it's the most average. So if you don't know how to program at all, then ChatGPT is going to get you started for sure, help you write your first simple program, and that's a good thing. But if you're someone who has been programming professionally for years, then vibe coding is just going to lead to you being really frustrated and wasting a lot of time. You probably would have been quicker and written better code if you'd just done it yourself. And by the way, just because LLMs help you do things better doesn't mean it helps you learn better. In fact, there is a whole series of studies that show that LLMs actually make learning worse. I'll link it above, but this was particularly a problem for programming. But this means that whenever you use an LLM to help you do something, it's going to pull you towards the average. And if you're really bad at something, that's good. It gets you closer to the average for other people. But if you're really good at something, it pulls you down. For example, when I first started writing hooks for YouTube Shorts, I was really struggling with them, and all of ChatGPT's suggestions were better than my own. Now I knit my eyebrows together as those suggestions and think, I can come up with better ones on my own. I've surpassed the ChatGPT average. It was a useful tool when I had no experience in this space. Now, not so much. So maybe let's use this opportunity to talk about what ChatGPT is actually good at. Part 3, how ChatGPT is actually helpful. So the best reframe I have for you is to think of ChatGPT as a collaborator, not an oracle. When it comes to finding out actual facts, you shouldn't use ChatGPT for it. Instead, you should go to Google, which ranks pages based on authority and credibility, or well, it used to anyway. Now it ranks things based on SEO, but if you can wade through all of the keyword stuffing and padding, you can usually find the information that is factual and accurate. LLMs, on the other hand, are word prediction algorithms, and that means that sometimes they can get things wrong. So ask ChatGPT for a source when it comes up with a fact. If it can't give you one, it likely means it's made up. And if it can give you one, check that that source is actually real as well. So LLMs can't give you an answer, but they can help you find it yourself. Sometimes when I'm trying to brainstorm how I'm going to do a video, I might ask ChatGPT for ideas, and everything that it comes back with is absolutely useless. But what it does is sometimes it triggers something in my own brain to get me generating ideas that are much better. It's really good at removing that blank page syndrome that stops you from ever starting. When I'm stumped on a data science problem, sometimes I'll ask ChatGPT for a bit of help, and usually it suggests a library to me that I've never even heard of that might actually be really useful for what I'm working on. I just make sure to say no thank you when it offers to write me some code. It's also very good at rephrasing or summarizing a text and pulling out key points from there for you, but make sure that you ask it occasionally where it got that particular key point from, just to make sure it hasn't made it up. However, all of this comes with the caveat that the utility that you get from an LLM all depends on how you prompt it. Part 4, how to prompt an LLM. So before we get to the sort of things that we can type into the prompt bar when we're working with ChatGPT, I actually want to highlight something important that I've noticed first. Because the longer these conversations with an LLM go on, the worse these conversations get. What do I mean when I say this? Well, you might have heard of the term hallucination, which is where an LLM makes up a fact that is completely untrue. And you see this if you talk to it about maybe a recent TV show or something like that. You can get into a conversation with it and all of a sudden it's calling the characters completely the wrong name or fabricating a plot point. Again, that's because it's advanced autocomplete, and with all the different discussions of TV shows and plots going on, sometimes it just gets its wires crossed. My personal theory is that the longer a chat goes on, the more noise is introduced in the conversation. So when you first start out, you send just one message, and that's not a huge amount of information for it to go on, so it tends to be a little bit more accurate. But as the conversation goes on, it's trying to maintain more and more of the actual context of the conversation, and in the end, it ends up spouting nonsense. So my rule is, when the conversation gets weird, it's time to create a new instance of the chat. You can copy and paste over any relevant context from the last chat if you need to. Now let's talk about the actual AI prompting, because in the early days, all of the recommendations were for things like act as a marketing agent and give me an answer on X, Y, Z, or now there's more suggestions like adding at the end, be less sycophantic. But from my experience, none of that is actually that useful. So let's talk about what ChatGPT doesn't tend to ignore instead. Personally, I prefer to be direct but give it structure. For example, please rewrite this email for me in the format of 1. General pleasantries at the start of the conversation, 3 key points in bullet points, general nice sign off, kind regards, my name, whatever it is. But also, please don't use M dashes, and then I copy and paste the actual M dash that I inevitably used earlier in the chat, because if you say it in words, it will still use them. And then one of my favorite things to do is get the LLMs to critique each other's work. That diversification is important. It's important to have a diversified portfolio in finance so that you don't get hit by one particular investment going wrong. And we know that 2 heads are better than 1 when it comes to solving a problem. So why not the same for LLMs? Get them to critique each other's work to narrow in on the best response. And lastly, keep in mind, garbage in, garbage out. If you put in low quality prompts or really overly complex ones that not even a human would understand, then don't be surprised when you get pure rubbish out. Prompt quality matters. Oh wait, there's one more important thing that I need to talk to you about. Part 5, privacy. One overarching point that many of the naysayers have when it comes to LLMs, and actually turned out to be something mentioned in this 1956 articles about computers as well, is the privacy violations that this could cause. I mean, we've all had accounts hacked or fraudulent charges on our bank account or privacy invasions in many other ways from being online. But when it comes to LLMs, things are a little bit more nuanced. First and foremost, everything you say to an LLM is fair game for training and improving the model. That means you should never tell a model something that you want linked back to you, or at least not let the model know it's you in that case. Company secrets or proprietary code is another incredibly important one. I know that these videos we put out there for free for people to see, and there's blog posts as well. So sometimes I will use an LLM for a sense check on the pacing, because I know this stuff is going to go out on the web for it to scrape anyway. But for something that stays internal, there's no way I can use an LLM for that. Anything you don't want to be out there publicly, don't feed to an LLM. So there you go, an introductory video into LLMs, how to use them in a way that works with both their pros and their cons from an admittedly LLM skeptic user. There are many further topics I could cover, such as practical tips for how to integrate it into your workflow, environmental and ethical concerns, or answering the question of whether you should personalize the LLM to yourself. But this is LLMs 101, and it's okay if we're just getting started. I'm also aware that LLMs are a hugely controversial topic, so if you are going to talk about it in the comments, we welcome them, but please try and keep it civil. If you don't, I'm copying and pasting it into an LLM to moderate. How's that? Finally, if you're a data scientist who's watching this because you are bored waiting for your code to run, then we have the solution for you. Our closed beta for our platform that is going to decimate data science waiting time is opening next month. Find the details in the description to join for your slot. If this video helped you out, consider helping us out by liking and subscribing. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.